Welcome back. In this part we are going to design our data sources window in XAML. So previously I have just provided one text box and one button to take files. And we are going to end with something like this. So let's get to it. First of all, let's rename our window from main window to something more relevant. Like for example, window underscore data sources. Okay, I will just copy this name, go to backend and rename this class here, window data sources, and apply. Okay, and also let's close this window because we will have to reload it anyway. But for now we need to change our startup URI in app.xaml. So change main window to the new name, save, and now we can open our window again and it will show up like this. Let's change the title to data sources dash db line. Okay, and you can just put your program name here. Well, the height is going to be 725 and the width is going to be 1000. I will also add min height to be 400 and min width to be 400. The Windows Start application is going to be center screen, and we will also need to access its loaded event because previously we have provided registry and license keys, and here we will check them. And also for images we need to use layout rounding and set it to true. This avoids the blur effect. And also we are going to have a lot of controls here. We definitely need to define some styles in window.resources. So first of all we will style our images, all images, so target type image. Mainly I just want to make it so that when they are disabled, their opacity should decrease. I will need to access style triggers for that. So style triggers, and here trigger property is enabled. So we check the property is enabled, whether its value is false. And when it is false, we set the property called opacity to the value of the fully visible image is just 1.0. So we need anything lower than that. I commonly put 0.25. Next, I will need a style for text blocks. Let's just copy it. So target type text block. I will set its vertical alignment. So vertical alignment to be center. By default, it's set to top. And I will leave the same opacity trigger. Then I will create a style for text box. We will have two. Right now I have just this one. So style target type text box. I will set its vertical scroll bar visibility and set it to be auto by default. And we can remove it now here because it is automatically applied to all controls that do not override these properties. I will also set its text wrapping, so we don't need actually triggers here. So text wrapping will be equal to wrap. You can remove it. Also accepts return, we'll set it to true. I do it because otherwise I will have to duplicate all the same properties for another text box. So I will only add additionally one event setter. For the event text changed, and the handler is going to be, well, we don't have one, but I will create a new one. So text box, actually, let's type txt editor. Text changed. Press F12 to auto-generate it, and This is the previous one, we can remove it. So now we will add the main container. Right now we have a grid. Let's put it inside our new main container. And that is going to be not a stack panel, not a grid, but a dock panel. And honestly, you could use just a grid, but I discovered that it is more suitable when you are experimenting with a lot of stuff and when your UI is open to changes. For example, we have two controls here. I will have a grid for our tools at the top. So I set dock panel .dock and set it to top. And just to illustrate, I will create a test button here. This is just a placeholder, test. So we have our panel here, and if I set it, for example, to bottom, I now have it here. And I did not have to create grid row definitions and change the grid row index. That's really the benefit of it. I also could just set it to left, but then I would need to redesign it. Well, alright. So I will set it to top. Its max height is going to be 25. And this grid is going to have grid column definitions. So grid column definitions. We will have 3 columns. One set of tools for the left text box, one set of tools for both text boxes, and one set of tools for the right only text box. So we will need a column definition here, and here, and here. But the columns on the side should be wider than that on the center. So I will set their width to 2 star. And here as well. By default, it equals to 1 star. And then here I will create another grid. Grid. In grid column 1, or rather in grid column 0. It's going to have 3 column definitions as well. Grid column definitions, column definition, but the first 2 will have auto width. So width equals auto, and here as well. So here we will have the register button, here we will have the update button, and next we will have tools for the text box. So let's create a button in grid column 0. Its name is going to be button underscore register. I will create a click event for it. Press F12 and get back. Let's give it a tooltip. Register this program. Basically, it will just open our window by the same window. And this button will be visible only if we have not put the license key yet. And we will check it in our loaded event. So let's get back here, or rather here. Let's give it content, register. So I actually wanted to have a transparent background. Let's set border brush to transparent and background to transparent as well. I will set its horizontal alignment to center, and by default its visibility will be collapsed. And here we check if we do not have a license key, we will set this button to visible. So where is our button? Here. Also let's give it a slight margin to the left, so 5000. Let's see how it looks. Alright, then we will have another button. I will duplicate this one and put it in grid column 1. Its name is going to be button update, and the click event is going to be button update click. So it will be visible when there is a new version of this program on some website. So the tooltip is going to be check for update on the website. Its content is going to be update. Next, we will have tools for this text box. So what I'm going to do is use toolbar tray. There are other options, but I found that this one might be the quickest one. So toolbar tray in grid column 2. Its vertical alignment is going to be center, and by default it has dots like here, which means that you can actually move it but I don't want it, so I will set is locked to true, and it will hide them. And I will set horizontal alignment to center. And inside I put a toolbar, which will have a button inside. Its name, actually, this is the button that I'm going to use. I will just cut it and paste it here. And I believe I should give it a name just in case. So, button open file 1. Instead of content, we will use an image. So let's change it to tooltip. Open source file. And it will consist of an image and a text block. I will put a grid here, which will consist of 2 columns. Grid column definitions. And I believe we can use just 2 equal columns. So column definition. Alright, and here will go our image and a text block. And before I proceed, you will need to import some images. I have prepared my own, and you can get them from the link to my GitHub repository. So I have imported for images, file, info, and 2 icons for tables. So here I will put an image in the first column. So image in grid column 0. Its source is going to be images. So /images/ and then file.png. So file.png. Because its height is a bit too much, I can't remember its resolution, but I bet it's larger than 16 pixels. Reduce its max height to 16. And then I will have a text block in the second column. So grid column 1. Its text is going to be just source. So this will be a tool for the first text box, and for the second one we will type target. So vertical alignment is going to be center. Oh, and if you are at a loss or have not checked the demo, in the left text box we will load text that will be fragmented into cells that we'll get in the first database column, and the second text box will be fragmented into cells that will go into the second column in the database. And then we will be able to match them as we need. I will give it a margin of 5 on sides and 0 on top and bottom. Then I will put another tool, and to separate them I will use a control called separator. And here I will have a menu. So menu, I will give it a name like menu underscore source. Its isEnabled property will be false by default, and that is because when we don't have text, we don't need it to be enabled. And its background is going to be #000000000, and it will contain a menu item. Here we will put its header. So menu item header. It will consist of a stack panel. Its orientation will be horizontal. And we will add a tooltip for it. So from this text box only. So we have a menu which consists of menu items. So let's put an image here. Actually, let's try and copy this one first. Put it here. Remove the grid column. We don't need it here because it's a stack panel. And instead of file, I will use table multi-row here. Oh, it's JPG. As you see, because it is disabled, it is very hard to see, but it is there, as you see. If I remove this, you can see it better now. But by default, it should be disabled. And now to improve the image quality, I will set render options.bitmap scaling mode to nearest neighbor. And as you see, now it's much sharper. And we will put a text block here. And it will simply say that align as word tables. So, as you can guess, we will allow processing Word content as a table. Because when you open a file containing a table, it contains special characters, which you can use to divide your content into cells. And let's give it a margin on sides 5. And I also want to add an arrow here, like this one. And I have not found a simple solution to this yet. And so I use a path. So path is basically drawing in WPF. So vertical alignment, center. I will give it a large margin to the left, a slight margin to the top, and I don't think that we need any margin on right and bottom. So its color is going to be black. Again, I remind you, this will be all the same arrow pointing to the bottom. You can draw it using the data property, which uses its own mini language. You start by typing M and then you put in the coordinates. I want it to start at 0x 0y, so I put 0 y space 0. Then I want it to go here, so it's about 3 pixels, I guess, so L3. And yeah, you see it drew a line here. Then I want to go 6 0 like here, and Z. And then after this header, again, this will not be a button. It will just be a drop down which will open 2 more items to align as a word table containing 1 row or as a word table containing multiple rows, because it needs a slightly different processing. After the header, we insert into this menu item another menu item. So its name is going to be source item underscore align as table single row. Then I will create a click event for it. So click, and let's generate it and get back. Its tooltip is going to be, we will use text block to describe that it is for 1 row only, but users should not be confused because we will use 2 columns, one for the source and one for the target. Let's type 2 columns. And just to explain what kind of document that would be, let me just open Word and explain to you. So we will have a table with 1 row but 2 columns. And here we will type our text. So for example, hello, my name is Quasimodo. And here will be the target text. For example, hello, my name is Quasimodo. And we will process this as 2 cells on the left and 2 cells on the right. When we have 1 row, we will use it using paragraph characters. And when we have multiple rows, we will use it using this special character, which is invisible, but it actually exists when you read it. Let's put a menu header here, menu item header. Again, it's going to be a stack panel of horizontal orientation. And we put inside a text block. Its text is going to be just 1 row, and we will give it margin on size. Here we will use an icon, menu item icon, and we will put an image here. So let's find that image, copy it and put it here. But instead of multiple row, we will use table 1 row, 16 pixels. Here, and then we will put a separator here, and as you see, it's wise enough to recognize when we need a vertical separator and a horizontal separator. So after the separator we will have a very similar menu item, so let's copy it and put it here, and let's type source item align as table multiple rows, and let's generate a new click event for it. So again, leave a tooltip that it works with 2 columns. And in the text block we will type, well, multiple rows. For the icon we will use this image, table multiple row, here. And as you see, it's identical to what you have seen in the demo. I guess we are done with this menu. And we will add a button inside this arrow. So after the menu, let's create a button. Its name is going to be button underscore clear source. So when we click this button, we just erase the text entered in the text box. And so that we do not actually accidentally click on it when we do not want it, I will always hide it in this arrow. So its content is going to be clear and its click event. Press F12, get back. And in order to always hide it in the arrow, type toolbar, access its overflow mode property and set it to always, like this. So let me just show you. Here, now you see it's disabled by default and it will be enabled when we type some text here. So here we have a hidden button, clear. Alright, so we are done with the first grid, which is again a set of tools for the first text box, well, and two buttons for registering and updating the program. So let's collapse it, and after it we create the second set of tools which work for two text boxes. So again, create grid and put it in grid column 1. It will consist of 3 columns, so grid column definitions, and we will place the buttons, a text block and a combo box. The button will align the text into text boxes. The text block will just say by, so align by what, and then we will have a combo box where we will select what kind of alignment we want, so by paragraphs, by sentences, or by words. So create a column definition here, here, and here, and the central one is going to be a text block, so make its width auto. So in the first column we will have a button, so button, and set grid column to 0. Its name is going to be button underscore align to text. Its content is going to be the same, so align to text, well, lowercase. The background is going to be khaki, and let's create a click event for it. And by default it is going to be disabled as well. Again, this is only because in this part I will not use binding. But normally, of course, you will use binding and you do not need to set them hard-coded and define their behavior here. Usually it is resolved at the markup level in XAML if you use binding correctly, especially when you also utilize value converters. But that's for future parts. Today we are going to do it in a more Windows Forms way, which is honestly a bit faster, but of course worse. So we will replace this, but later. After the button we will have a text block, so text block. Its text is going to be by. Let's put it in grid column 1 and let's give it margin of 3 only on sides. We don't need it on top and bottom. In the third column we will have a combo box. So combo box in grid column 2. Its name is going to be combo box separator, and inside we will put combo box items. So the first one is going to be paragraph and is going to be selected by default, so set is selected to true. Then we will have another combo box for sentence, remove this, and finally we will have another combo box for word. So this is it for the second set of tools. And finally we will have another grid here. So it will be very similar to this one, but we don't need these buttons. So actually we will have our toolbar tray here and another button here. So actually let's copy this whole grid and put it here, and grid column 2. But it will consist only of 2 columns, and the first one is going to expand, the second one is going to be of auto width. So we don't need here these buttons. Grid column will be 0. We just need to change the names, so button open file 2 and button open file 2 click, press F12. The tooltip is going to be open target file, and we don't need to change anything here. And in this menu, we will rename it to menu target. So it's going to have the same menu item drop-down, but inside we will have to rename our menu items. So target item and also target click, press F12, get back, and also here target and target, press F12, and button clear target, clear target click, press F12, get back. And after this toolbar tray, we will have a button in grid column 1. Its click is going to be, we will have a button to see the About Us window. So button underscore about underscore click, press F12, get back. The tooltip is going to be About Us, and I don't set it as content because we will use an image here. This one. So border brush, transparent, background, transparent, height, auto, then margin. I will need to add a tiny margin to the right, so 0050, and inside I will put an image. So let's copy it from here, paste it here, and the source is going to be info.png. By the way, when you start with the forward slash, it's equivalent as when you type back colon 2 forward slashes application colon comma comma comma. So you see it shows up as well. Well, we can actually set not just its max height, but strictly set its width and height. Width 16 and height 16. We are done with the third set of tools, so collapse it. And actually we are done with our top panel, or bottom if you choose so. In the second row we just need 2 text boxes. So grid, let's redraw this. So column definitions and column definition, and actually they should be equal, like this. Our first text box in grid column 0. I will add extra functionality so that we could drag something to these text boxes from outside. Well, for example, files. And the program will automatically open them and read their content here. Which means that you don't necessarily have to click the source or target buttons. Oh, by the way, it shouldn't be source. This one should be target. So in order to preview what we drag, because for example we don't want audio files to be dragged here because the program will not be able to process them. So preview drag over. It will be the same for 2 text boxes, so txt editor underscore preview drag over. Press F12 and get back. And for drop, which occurs when we actually release our mouse button with the file, we type again txt editor drop, press F12 and get back. So we just can copy this one here, put it in grid column 1, txt editor 2, and that's all, because preview drag over will be the same as for the first one, as well as the drop event. So now if you launch it, this is almost the same that you have seen in the demo, but you don't see buttons here because we actually have not coded anything. And if we type, nothing becomes enabled. But there is just one thing left, and that is the icon. Again, you can get the icon for this program at my GitHub repository or put your own. I have imported to the base project directory. And now I can go to properties and select my icon here. And now I just have to rebuild it and it should show up. So there you have it. In the next video, we are going to actually code it, and we will process these texts and we will separate them. They will be aligned in the next window, which will be accessed by pressing one of these buttons, this button, or one of these buttons. So thank you for watching and please subscribe.